welcome everybody to the July meeting hosted by Mount Vernon Lee Chamber of Commerce. I am Allison Ross Tompkins and I'm the vice chair here at the Chamber. I'm also the director of sales and marketing at the Fairfax Retirement Community. So while I have your attention, as the director of sales and marketing, I wanted to let you know that we are hiring, and it seems like everybody is hiring. So we're hiring in all areas, dining, housekeeping, and most specifically, I personally am looking for a director of sales. So if you know of anybody who has any kind of specific senior living industry experience or hospitality experience, I can train them myself and would love to have a very qualified candidate here. So thank you for that. So I'm delighted to meet with all of you virtually this morning, and I look forward to September when we will start back in person with breakfast at the Bellhaven Country Club. So as we begin, I'd like to recognize the Chamber's strategic partners. These are businesses that support the Chamber on a higher level, and we appreciate their contribution to our success. Those participating in the meeting today: Jason Hunt with Roy Rogers Restaurants. Thank you, Jason. Of course, the Fairfax Retirement Community and the Army Residence Retirement Foundation of Potomac. And I don't want to miss anybody. So shout out, please, if you're participating and I haven't mentioned your name. Okay. So what follows are some upcoming Chamber events, so you can get these right on your calendar. Registration for events is on the website. So coming up on July 21 is our happy hour networking at Bellhaven Pizzeria. That should be fun. On August 5th, we have Dr. Cassandra Fowler, the owner of Harmony Animal Hospital, who will present the Thursday at noon discussion. Then coming up on September 22nd, the very popular annual Chamber Golf Classic. And that is typically held at the Laurel Hills Golf Club. And again, this year, this is, of course, the main benefit for the Chamber's Scholarship Fund. And it's always a really fun event. And knock on wood, we've had terrific weather. So I'm counting on terrific weather again. But now is the time to register because it will fill up. You can also find more events, committee meetings, the lead share group, and the Senior Resources Council on our website. So the Chamber is presenting this program today to update our members on the Richmond Highway. This important transportation corridor is also the main street for Eastern Fairfax County, and much study and planning has been done for this road. After decades of waiting for improvements, funding was secured, and both VDOT and Fairfax County DOT are moving ahead with infrastructure projects. We welcome the project managers for both projects. Dan Reinhard is the VDOT project manager responsible for the Richmond Highway widening from Jeff Todd Way to Costco. Vanessa Aguayo is the project manager on the Bus Rapid Transit project from Huntington Metro to Hybla Valley. Both of these projects will have major impacts on businesses along the highway, whether it will be taking of the property for right-of-way or disruptions during the construction project process. So Vanessa Aguayo, she is currently a transportation planner in the Capital Projects and Traffic Engineering Division at Fairfax County Department of Transportation. She leads a team of highly talented engineers and planners who work on a wide variety of transportation projects. Vanessa has a wide range of experience working on small sidewalk projects, trails to metro, and large-scale transportation projects like the Richmond Highway BRT. Vanessa has been with the county for almost 9 years and is originally from California, where she worked for a small traffic engineering firm and started her career. So what I'd like to do is start with Vanessa and hear about BRT design update, and then hear from Dan with an update on the highway widening. When both have completed their presentation, we will take questions. You can type your question into the chat and we will ask as many questions as possible. Okay, Vanessa?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you. I'm going to start sharing screen. And I hope that's a good scale on for everyone. So thank you for that introduction. as you can see here to the right, it's our overall project location and direction. And I guess I just want to point out one little thing. You did say the project goes to Hybla Valley, but actually while Dan and his team with the VDOT team are widening the road, the project, the BRT project itself does extend through all the way to Fort Belvoir. So I know that's a little weird, right? Because I guess you can say in this first section where you see the yellow line here, that is being all controlled or designed and constructed by FCDOT as the lead. But the blue here is actually led by, again, the VDOT team. So again, Dan and I can all get this probably all the time. So if anyone wants to know specifically more details on that, we can go through that. But I did just want to highlight that overall the BRT project goes all the way to Fort Belvoir. So you can see here, for those of you who don't know, the red dots are the 9 stations that we are going to construct within that way. And again, we always, because our projects are so closely tied, you can see here is how that relates to the corridor. And Dan, I'm sure we'll go through this anyways, but you can also just click on the link there and it'll take you to their website. So let's get into the project updates. First, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about our recent virtual public meetings we had starting in October of last year. We kind of did this major update overall to just tell everyone we were on progress. So we started with the right-of-way acquisition process in October. We presented station design concepts in November. In December, we kind of brought everything back together and talked about the BRT project, brought Dan and his team, talked about the corridor improvements project. There's also was a separate effort, the urban design guidelines for the Richmond Highway corridor, which are now adopted. So that was presented by our Department of Planning and Development. And then Active Fairfax, which is a very big, our bike and pedestrian teams are working on this. And this is really looking at the whole county. So it's a very big project, looking at those connectivities right from the neighborhoods, whether it be sidewalks, cycle tracks, just looking at the needs of what's needed on that side. And so that's an effort that'll take a couple more years, but if I'm sure if you go to our website and put in Active Fairfax, you can find out specifically more about that project. In January, we talked about branding, and then and then we'll talk a little bit more, but in June, we just had another public meeting. All of these meetings, however, were held in both English and Spanish. You can see here, we tried various ways to get the information out, but the meetings are now recorded and found on our website for anyone who wants to view and know specific details on those efforts. Project progress, we're again currently at 30% design. Our website has our updated role maps, and we'll discuss a little bit about that further down in the presentation. For our environmental document, we're still not completed yet. We're waiting for anticipating the signature, hopefully by the end of this summer. And of course, for most things on the project, we always continue to refine, design, reduce those right-of-way impacts as needed. And I think one of the big things we'll be doing with this project is enhancing stormwater management design. The corridor itself hasn't been updated for multiple decades. And so one of the things that I guess you can say is lacking is the management of stormwater that has kind of fallen behind. Standards have changed. So you can see here is an example of one of the visions for these stormwater locations of what they might look like in the future. A little bit about project schedule. We had to refine this given several factors. You can see here, whether it be for environmental process, the widening project, or other design changes that we've made along the way. We are now anticipating BRT to be open and expected for revenue service around the date of 2030. Of course, all of this has to, before construction can start, we do need to move and acquire the right of way. And I think the exciting thing though is when you can see us in the ground for active construction is in 2023, when we will be relocating the utility lines. So now a little bit more on right-of-way acquisition. I talked about this a little. We had a major meeting in October, but for anybody here who wants to know more information, I just wanted to kind of highlight that meeting did have, again, it was all right-of-way. So we went over schedule, the legal requirements, process, types and scale of potential right-of-way impacts. Again, the maps you see are found online, and I have another slide that'll kind of show you what to look for. We also talked about available services that were available for impacted property owners, tenants, and including businesses. And we talked at that point, we were still doing some property surveys and environmental investigations. So we wanted to, for anybody who was interested, kind of wanted to show letters of what was going out from the county. So just a little bit more, we're going to have different types of potential impacts. So you can see here, whether it be a total acquisition, partial acquisition, maybe perpetual easement, or just something of temporary nature. Those you can see in the map here. And so at the bottom, we do have this scaled, and you can see it's kind of color coded. And again, hopefully the good thing here is it matches the VDOT side. So if you have impacts, whether it be in the northern part of the corridor or southern part, we've matched the color system. So at least no one gets confused as to why our color is green and theirs red. So we have been coordinated on that side. But this is, again, just an example, and I won't go specifically through it, but you can see here, I guess I wanted to just highlight the preliminary limits of disturbance that has to do with our environmental document, and that's highlighted in purple. So just to highlight, that means that's the only area we've studied. So whatever it is that we have to do on the project for the engineering side, we wouldn't go past these limits. Now, that's not to say that's going to be impact. That's just to say that that's what we've studied for the environmental document. And we have to keep whatever it is we touch on the property side or the road side within those limits. So moving forward, again, we expect the process for right-of-way to start at the end of summer. The project team members will be meeting individually with any impacted property owners. And I guess with that said, each acquisition is unique in its consideration. So while something works for one property owner, it might not be the same deal for the next one. So if anyone wants to speak to any of our staff, we have the information here. You can either email us at dotbrt@fairfaxcounty.gov. Just put right away in the header, and then one of our talented and experts will get back to you. You can also call us 703-877-5600 and request to speak to project staff. Again, if you want to know about specifically the right-of-way meeting that we had in October, the link is found at the bottom. And if not, we do have a specific right-of-way page that also has that information. So let's talk about station design. Like I said, in November, we brought to you two concepts actually. And after we had some surveys and kind of stakeholder information, and with our executive committee, we did move forward. We've chosen station 1 concept, which you can see here to the right. So this concept will be introduced to all of the 9 stations. It is conceptual, so that's to say we're only about 20-30% design. It does not show all the station details or components that you'd want to see. Some of the things that we'll continue to refine, you can see the list here at the bottom. We'll be looking at security features, landscaping. A big effort that we want to do is community identification components, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we're calling it the community charm of these stations. Fare collection devices, branding, of course, is a big one, and we'll come back to that, and of course, signage and wayfinding. So I mentioned a little bit about community charm, and it's just an example here, but basically we want to go back and kind of incorporate some of these history and characteristics of the neighborhoods that we're finding along the way. So we know that PennDOT is different from Hippo Valley, from Gum Springs, and so we want to come back out to the community and talk to them to see what do they want to see. So those conversations we're expecting to start in the fall. We'll probably have early September, have a meeting that's to how to kick that off. But if anyone is interested in being part of that, we are welcome to, you're welcome to email us, and we'll get you on those lists. And we'll still put a big call out for everyone. But, depending on where you live, you may only want to be involved with the PennDOT station, but it is open to everyone if you wanted to participate. Okay. Potential noise walls. So it's not really an update, but I guess we get questions as to where we are with these. So for, we presented these at our 20% design. The locations have not changed. You can see them here at the graphic at the bottom. This is the village at Gum Springs, and this is where they've only been identified. We still have more work to do. So we'll have to complete additional noise analysis and finalize these wall designs. That timing is actually closer as we get to construction. As we do get closer to that point, we'll obviously go back and solicit input from those affected property owners and or renters that will be benefited from these walls. If you want more information specifically on the process and how that works, we have links to the VDOT noise abatement webpage at the bottom where you can specifically see what that process looks like. So roadway design. Let's start with, we have a new interactive map on our website. This works much like a search engine. You can search corridor addresses. You can see here to the right is an example of what you're going to see when you do that. has the information from the public plans, but some people like to kind of, have this more in an interactive way. So you can go in and turn layers on and off to kind of get a better sense for what's happening on the corridor, what the design looks like. We will continuously be updating this as we refine the design. So the changes are going to happen. I've linked you here to the website at the bottom. And again, you can also find these in a static form, which is just the roll plans. This is similar to what VDOT has. Again, we've done a similar thing, so you can see both of the projects. Now, I will warn everyone that because we don't have control of the design for the VDOT section, the colors are going to be highlighted different. So when you click on something within Dan's portion of the project, it will link you back to their website, and that's just again because we can't update both, and they may be doing changes that we don't have access to. So we want to make sure everyone has the most current information. Preliminary design. So we just had a meeting on June 30th where we talked specifically about any modifications and the changes that we've made, and really took in additional comments. We had about 70 registered attendees. That information, that website, I'm sorry, that recording is now available on the website. You can also click here on the link to YouTube, so you can find out specifically what that presentation entailed. We talked about this a little bit already, but community charm conversations. We were going to do this in the fall. And then just a little bit more, we did have, again, this comment period was open from June 11th to July 9th, where we pretty much, again, took comments from everyone. Currently, the team is reviewing them, trying to see what else we can do and refine and go back to. But I think of another big thing is we are continuously setting up property meetings with property owners, who have requested them. The goal and intent here is to take the design, or at least get endorsement for the design in late July from the Board of Supervisors. So you might be asking, well, what have you done? What are the modifications? Here's this, you can see the slide here. We have about 7 slides, and these are the different areas that we've been able to modify. So I think you already know about Fortson Road. We just wanted to bring this up because this, part of the comments that we received from the community made us go back to Fortson Road. Originally, our design had that we were looking at closing the entrance at Fortson Road, but again, through community just input, we went back and it was determined that we were going to leave it open. So Fortson Road and Boswell Avenue is going to be open as it is today. I guess the only difference more on the project side is that station area is going to look a little different. So the southbound platform at Fortson, at the intersection of Fortson, will only be for Fortson, and then you'll have to kind of northbound platform will be found on the north side of Boswell Avenue. And that's just a little different because typically at intersections, you would find both of the station platforms. The rest of these, Fairhaven, in the Fairhaven area, in the rentals, the St. Louis Catholic Church, Collard Street, and Boswell Avenue, basically we've gone back to the design and refined it with just doing some engineering techniques. So whether that be, going back and just looking at the regrading or changing our curvature, horizontal or vertical, it's made us pull back on some of these regrading efforts so that we don't have as much impacts in these areas. Again, all this information, and I know it's kind of hard here to kind of see what specifically this was, but those are found on our June 30th of presentation. Whether you look at the recording, I think we also have the presentation just static if you want to go specifically to these areas and look at what the differences are, but I just did want to highlight that these is where we've been able so far to go back and modify the road design. All right, so next steps. Once we get the preliminary design approved by the board, again, we're continuing to refine, so we'll definitely go back and look at what other refinements we can make, adding more detail, and of course, working to mitigate those property impacts where possible. Specifically, we're going to be looking at roadway intersection refinements, going back to our stormwater management and drainage, and continue to look at pedestrian and bicycle design. And again, also looking at community charm conversations for all the stations that we'll be looking to enhance. So how to stay involved, there's multiple ways. One is signing up by Fairfax Alerts here. If you put in the category Richmond Highway Project VDOT updates, you'll get them that way. Or join our mailing list. If you go to our homepage at the county's website and kind of scroll towards the bottom, we do send email blasts specifically to anyone on anything we've done on the project. So you would have learned about our meeting. Sometimes we just have, this is updated newsletters that we do, or just information meetings like on a smaller scale that we've done. We obviously haven't done many of those given the pandemic during the last year, but previously we were doing local events, and so we're hoping that this fall we'll be able to pick that back up. So you can see here we're expecting our next public information meeting probably be in the early fall, but really we'll probably be in contact or I guess more consistently in the fall, given that we do have these community charm conversations coming up. So that is all I have. And I think you said we were going to wait for questions.
Yes,
so
if you don't mind. Yep.
No, absolutely. Not a problem. So I will turn it to Dan and stop sharing screen.
All right. Thanks, Vanessa. Hopefully everybody can see my screen.
We can indeed. Mm-hmm.
All right, great. I just want to do a couple introductions. I got a couple of people here with me today. AJ Hamidi is here. He's with SCDOT. He's the transportation planner. He's essentially the liaison between Fairfax County DOT and VDOT on the Richmond Highway corridor widening project the VDOT is administering. We have Gary Farrell with VDOT who's a VDOT right-of-way manager in case we have questions about right-of-way, as well as Alec Tilford, who is also with the VDOT right-of-way group. All right, so today we're going to go over a quick project overview. We're going to talk about some design updates. We'll go through a little bit about the right-of-way acquisition process, as well as some next steps on the project. We'll talk a little bit about the schedule, and then we can get into questions. So the Richmond Highway Corridor Improvements Project is a road improvement project sponsored by Fairfax County and administered by VDOT. The project is sometimes called the widening project. The project will widen Richmond Highway from 4 to 6 lanes for approximately 3 miles between Jeff Todd Way and Sherwood Hall Lane. The project will include safety improvements and congestion relief. It will also include squaring up and realigning intersections to improve their safety and operations. A wide median will be provided with the project to accommodate future BRT, which Vanessa just talked about. Sidewalks and bicycle facilities will be provided on both sides of the road. 3 bridges will be replaced at Little Hunting Creek, Doe Creek, and North Fork of Doe Creek. There's the potential that noise walls will be installed, similar to what Vanessa had mentioned before. Utilities will be relocated overhead for the full length of the project, and stormwater management facilities will be installed to detain and treat stormwater runoff. There have been no major changes since our last major public meeting or the last time we were here with the chamber. Just to recap what is included in the project, the typical section is 3 through travel lanes in each direction, left turn lane in each direction, which will a wide median to accommodate future BRT, curb and gutter on each side, a 9-foot buffer strip on each side to accommodate future trees, a bidirectional cycle track on each side of the street, a buffer between the cycle track and the sidewalk to accommodate utility poles, and a 6-foot sidewalk on each side. So the project is roughly 3 miles. It extends from Jeff Todd Way to Sherwood Hall Lane. We are breaking the project into 2 phases. There's phase 1 in the south end and phase 2 in the north end. They are broken just north of Fry Road around Grays Street to roughly 1.5 mile sections. The reason we're doing that is we're balancing some of the load of the right-of-way that we're acquiring, but there's certain processes that have to follow one after the other. And by breaking the project, we can complete say right away on phase 1 and then move on to utility relocation. While in phase 2, we're still acquiring right away in that phase. And so breaking the project actually allows us to compress the schedule a little bit so that their tasks can overlap, which is not normally allowed in the process that we have to follow. Quick design update. We are continuing to coordinate with the community. We met with the Mount Vernon Council of Citizens Associations earlier this week. whenever they invite us, we go out to those meetings. We have been attending elected official town halls. We'd like to thank the chamber for inviting us out to meet with the business community. We are in the process of incorporating minor design adjustments based on comments from both the public as well as VDOT in Fairfax County. We just completed utility field inspection plans for phase 1 of the project. We are nearly complete with utility field inspection plans on phase 2 of the project. And what this does is it allows us to coordinate with the utility companies. It's a milestone where we have reached a point where we can say the major design elements are in place. So the utilities are able to count on those designs for their utility relocation plans. We have received authorization for right-of-way on full parcel acquisition. So any parcel that we need the entire parcel, or we're impacting a parcel such that we believe that we're rendering it not economically feasible, we have authorization to pursue those. And the current construction estimate is $415 million for this 3-mile section, and we currently have $341 million currently programmed to this project. Some of this is a little bit duplicative to what Vanessa had to say earlier, but I'll just run through it again because some of these points are really important. So we are proceeding with a limited amount of right-of-way acquisition right now for any parcel that is a total acquisition. But these points are true whether we're in the total acquisitions or just the partial acquisitions. Each property owner and tenant impact is unique. So we'll hear a lot of times, well, you know, I was thinking this was going to happen because it's happening for so-and-so. Please don't rely on that. Every property owner is different. Every tenant is different. Their lease terms may be different. Whether they're an owner occupant may be different. So if there are specific questions that anybody has with regard to the right-of-way plot process, please reach out to us. You can contact me directly. My information's on the website. We'll show that website a little later. Down at the bottom, we actually have some links that are available. If you just Google keywords, a guide for property owners and tenants, we have a Spanish version and an English version. This gives some really important information for anyone who's impacted by the right-of-way process. It tells you what to expect and how the process is going to go. So that's a really useful document. Just a real quick overview of the right-of-way process. So we have received right-of-way notice to proceed on total acquisitions. We're hoping later this year we will get right-of-way acquisition authorization for phase 1 of the partial acquisitions. And once we get that, we're able to start doing things like appraisals and evaluate what properties are worth. From that point, written offers are made to property owners, and the negotiation process starts with property owners. Once the written offer is made, then we can identify who is actually occupying the property, whether it's the owner or a tenant, and get into what relocation assistance is available to those tenants, as well as any advisory services that we can provide. And then there's kind of the next step after negotiations. We can either pay for the impacts to the property, we can through a settlement, or we can do eminent domain if negotiations are not successful and we reach an impasse. And so that would be the next step to resolving any right-of-way acquisition issues. And so if we have more questions, I mentioned Gary and Alec. They are here to assist with any questions anybody may have specific to the right-of-way process. I will caution, we don't like to get into real specific information, you know, property by property conditions in public meetings like this. But if there's a general question particularly that you think would be helpful for everybody to know, please feel free to ask. Next steps. Okay, so I mentioned the utility field inspection earlier. So we have reached out to the utility companies. We have conveyed plans to them on phase one. And so they're starting to work on their designs for phase one. And by the end of summer, we hope to have the second phase in their hands as well, so they can start working on those utility relocation plans as well. We, similar to Vanessa, we have identified places where sound walls are going to be required. Or sorry, I shouldn't say that. Places where there is the potential for sound walls. And so there's a process that we have to go through of identifying where they are reasonable and feasible. And then from that point, there's actually a voting process that goes on. So we are hoping that this fall, we will actually get into that sound wall balloting process where we actually get feedback from those who are impacted by noise from the widened roadway. I mentioned partial right-of-way acquisition. So anywhere we need just a portion of a property, we're hoping to begin that this fall for phase one. Phase two is slated to start next year. We can't begin that process until we've actually acquired all the easement requirements from the utility company. So that's the partial acquisitions will follow the right-of-way utility coordination. And we do have right-of-way authorization for entire parcels for phase one and phase two. So we are out talking to property owners, and we'll be ramping that up over the rest of this year for phase one and phase two for anybody who the entire parcel is being acquired. All right, and this is a quick overview of our schedule. Similar to what Vanessa mentions, we are getting into we are in total acquisitions. We're going to be getting into partial right-of-way acquisitions. We are anticipating for phase one to start utility relocations in 2023 with construction on the main roadway in 2025 and completion of phase one by 2027. Phase two, we're anticipating utility relocations starting in 2024 and construction of the roadway starting in 2027. With everything wrapping up near the end of 2028, early 2029. So I'll just bring our website up real quick. As Vanessa mentioned, we have an interactive map. It is towards the top of this website. So feel free to go there. It gives you a great overview of the project and any impacts that are happening from the project. There is information there from past meetings. There's exhibits showing the roadways. So there's a lot of information that's available there. My contact information is up there. So feel free to reach out, particularly if you have questions on things like right-of-way. And that is all I have for today.
All right, the floor is now open for questions for Dan, Vanessa, AJ, Gary, and Alec. Holly, do you see any in the chat section?
Then Allison, no one has typed in any questions. I can start with some questions. Dan, do you want to stop sharing your screen for us?
Sure.
That'd be great. So let me ask Vanessa a question. I guess this is the first I've heard about noise walls for the BRT system. Could you explain to us a little bit about your map? You know, which color indicates the noise walls, where DOT sees noise walls for the BRT system? That'd be great.
Sure.
Right, we saw this slide. Maybe you could just tell us which areas.
Sure. So just to orient everyone, this is Fortson Road. This is Keens Village Road. And then, so this is I think they're townhomes or condos, the village at Gum Springs. So you see the red line here?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's it, just right there. And I guess to talk a little bit more about this, and Dan, maybe you can help me because you might know more about just the sound wall process in general. And I'm talking 20, 30,000 feet high level. What we're finding in my experience has been mostly sound walls get identified for the sound more at residential locations, right? Like, I don't think businesses and commercial properties are eligible, and just the way that the process and the rules and all that good stuff is kind of laid out. And Dan, correct me if I got any of that wrong. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I just wanted
That's
to
okay. And
clarify.
I am certainly not a noise wall expert either, but I believe, yeah, the criteria is different between a residence and a commercial property. And so commercial properties are much less likely, if they're even possible for them to be eligible.
Yeah.
So there's just a different set of criteria.
And I just wanted to point that out because I think even if you look between both of our projects, that's, if you know, higher level, that's where they've been identified. Like, here's a residential, and I know, Dan, like down south of Sherwood Hall, we're also the sound walls have been identified at the Spring Garden Apartments as well. So just to, again, bigger picture here for everyone.
Yeah, and I almost made a huge error in what I said earlier. So we go through and we identify the vertical and horizontal location of the roadway, and then we go through a process of identifying the anticipated increase in noise levels from that new location of roadway, both vertically and horizontally. That supplements information. They actually go out and set microphones in the field and actually measure noise levels along the roadway as part of this process. And then once the areas are identified where they would meet a certain criteria as far as noise levels, then you go through a balloting process, and certain units are identified. It may not be all of the units that are going to benefit from those sound walls. It may just be some of them that are impacted, but there's a certain set of criteria as far as benefited and impacted. And so there's a very specific, this is all federal rules. There's a very specific way that people can vote for the walls, and it's whether you're benefited and whether you're impacted says how much your vote gets weighted in the process. And so just because we've identified them as potential doesn't mean that they're going to actually be installed. The people who are impacted would actually have to vote for them to be installed.
Right.
Is there an anticipated budget for those sound barrier walls?
I'm sure it's in our estimates. I don't have a number off the top of my head.
Yeah, me either.
So Dan, when you have a multi-family development that is potentially slated for sound walls, is it the owners that vote, or is it the tenants in the property that vote?
So there's very specific guidelines to that, and the owner, if it's an owner who is not also the tenant, the vote actually gets split, and the owner gets a piece of the vote, and the tenant gets a piece of the vote. If it is an owner occupant, then they obviously get the full weighting of their vote.
Okay. So even though a tenant may not be there when the project's actually constructed, they still vote on.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So we had one question in the chat here. Has there been any further discussion regarding undergrounding of utilities?
You want me to take that one?
Yes,
Dan,
please.
since it's the county.
Sure, it affects both projects, so sure.
Absolutely. So right now, staff, it's continuing to be an open item or open conversation. But for now, staff at least has not been given the direction to underground utilities. If you ask our director, I'm pretty sure that that's, that they've been talking, part of the problem is we're still looking for the funds. But Supervisor, I know Supervisor Stark and Lusk with our director are continuously working on that. But for now, we have not been directed, and we've been told to just continue designing and relocations doing like for like.
Great, thank you so much. And Dan, I've got a question for you. So I was looking at the cross section that you showed us, 3 lanes in each direction, turn lanes. This is something that the chamber's advocated for years, that the highway should be a consistent width, that we should have curb and gutter, we should have pedestrian and bicycle facilities. But when I look at your online map, now correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there are places where the highway goes up to 8 lanes on one side, that there's a multitude of turn lanes that are put in, different things. Could you talk about that a little bit, and how that's affecting the design of the highway?
So yeah, so on the VDOT widening project from Jeff Todd Way all the way up to Mount Vernon Highway, Buckman Road, at the north end, we have a consistent cross section with 6 through lanes and a left turn lane in each direction, as well as the wide median that will eventually be 2 future BRT lanes. So that it's very consistent in that Jeff Todd Way to Mount Vernon Highway section. Once you get to Mount Vernon Highway, there's significantly more turn movements, particularly from Mount Vernon Highway from Richmond Highway onto Mount Vernon Highway, and Mount Vernon Highway onto Richmond Highway North. So there are a couple additional turn lanes at Mount Vernon Highway. Ladson Lane also has an additional turn lane that's kind of an extension of the turn lanes from Mount Vernon Highway. And then at Sherwood Hall Lane, actually there's additional left turn lanes, both north and south, I believe. Those are all really being driven by the traffic volumes and the turning movements that are required. We're trying to minimize the amount of spillback from the turn lanes into the through lanes, so that you actually get the benefit of this widened roadway that we're putting in that the third lane in each direction. And then I know Vanessa has some areas where she has some additional lanes as well.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Now, could you tell me, are the turn lanes that are envisioned in the new project, are they longer than the existing turn lanes?
In most cases, they are. So we look at several things when we're designing a project. We look at existing conditions, what they call opening year, and then design year. And so the design year is a fairly far out distance, because we don't want to design a roadway for today and then find out that traffic has grown and it's obsolete the moment it opens. So our design year is 2045. So we project traffic out to 2045, and that's how we size the lanes. So we are projecting more traffic in 2045. So the turn lanes have extended to meet the demands of that 2045 traffic, wherever we have room to do it.
So here's another question. I think this probably applies to maybe Dan. Vanessa can jump in if there's some that applies to her project. But what is the current status of discussions regarding pedestrian crossings, bridges, tunnels, crosswalks?
So what you see on the screen right now, I believe for both sections, is true, that we have bi-directional cycle tracks on both sides of the street. We have 6-foot sidewalks on both sides of the street. Wherever possible, we have crosswalks on all legs of an intersection. I think there's 3 locations right now, actually maybe 4 locations right now in the Richmond Highway corridor widening, where we're identifying one leg of the intersection to not have a crosswalk, and those are generally based on turning movements and the volumes from those movements. We are working with Fairfax County right now to reevaluate those and see if we can put that missing leg in. But of the 13 signalized intersections we have, only 4 of them are missing one leg of a crosswalk. Vanessa, I don't know about your section.
So I think for us, there might be one that we're looking at to make sure all four, but yes, all high visibility, all across. I think the other thing I'd note for just specifically ped and bike safety maybe is, you know, we're looking to do continuous lighting for the corridor. So if you look at it today, there might be intersections in certain areas, but I think that that's also a great safety feature that we're looking to add. So we're working on what that looks like, but I guess I wanted to note that because I know this graphic doesn't really show that. And we've presented this already, and we are looking at intersections. We're calling them intersection plazas. So, you know, we're at stations, specifically, let's just say we're at a BRT station. So we have people trying to access transit, people just trying to ride across or trying to walk. So we just see these areas as being having a lot more traffic when it comes to ped and bike movements. So we were designing those a little different as a shared space. We shared that concept back in 2019, and you know, in the fall when we come back and do another meeting and we kind of have a more updated detail design, I can come back if you guys want and can show you how we intend these intersection plazas to work. But that, and both Danny and I, our teams have been coordinating specifically on that, because the other thing we want to do is make sure that it doesn't matter whether you're in my project limits or Dan's, the features that you're going to see, how these, how amenities, whether it be your cycle track, sidewalk, crossings, right? How they should all feel the same. So we want to make sure we design them together so that there's no difference. And we have been doing that.
So Vanessa, just to clarify, are you saying that the raised pedestrian bridges are still under discussion, or that what I'm kind of hearing you say is that because you want them to be somewhat consistent, that if they're going to be crosswalks with the same look, design, and feel, that they'll just be on the street, so it'll just be at traffic lights?
Well, let's back up. That's separate. And so Dan, if I may, so right, the crossings today at signalized intersections, those will all feel the same, right? Because again, Dan and I are working consistently on to making sure that occurs. Now, there are two locations where we are putting underpasses, bridge for pedestrian crossings, and those are within Dan's project. So those have been approved. Well, at least the county supports that. And Dan, I can continue or you can take over.
Either way. So there are two underpasses. There's one at Dogue Creek and there's one at Little Hunting Creek, where we're taking advantage of the stream bed and the bridge that goes over the stream to provide a way for people to cross from one side to the other without any vehicle conflicts. So you'll be able to leave the sidewalk on one side of the roadway, go down a set of switchbacks, cross under the bridge, and come back up on the other side to meet the sidewalk on the other side of the street. So there, you don't have to wait for the light to change. You don't have to deal with, you know, cars potentially turning while you're trying to cross. It is completely separate from the roadway. And so it's two locations, Dogue Creek and Little Hunting Creek.
I'll ask one more question, Allison.
Okay.
So Dan, I think I've asked you this question before on the utilities. So we don't have any movement to underground utilities right now. Is there, so there, what is it, like 63 places on your project where utility lines cross over Richmond Highway? Are we getting rid of that? Are all of the lines going to just be on each side of the roadway, or do we have an answer to that yet?
At this point, the plan is to keep all the utilities above the roadway, including crossings of Richmond Highway. I would hesitate to answer that you'll get 63 crossings back because I don't know what the utility company's new design will be. If they'll consolidate some of those crossings, I'm not sure how they will approach that at this point.
So that's up to the utility companies in terms of their design, how they relocate the utilities. Is that what you're saying?
As long as they accommodate all of the features that we are trying to provide with this project, yes, it is largely up to them how they design the utilities.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions out there? While we have Vanessa, Dan, and Dan's team, now's a good opportunity. Holly,
Okay, I've got one more quick question. Vanessa, it looked like that you saved A&A Rental Station, that historic building. Is that correct? It's not going to be damaged?
Absolutely. So, and thank you. That is, so through our environmental process, just so everyone knows, I don't know if anyone knew this, but that is the first fire station. That's why it's so important for in Fairfax County back, I think in the 30s or 40s. Its actual name is, the Pendoff Fire Station. So because it's now a historic resource, we have to protect it, but legally, if we want any type of federal funding. So, right, we have gone back and done a lot of refinement and engineering to make sure that occurs. So there might be, if you know the property well, there's like a little retaining wall because the sidewalk is kind of lower than the property itself. So we might be touching that to bring in regrading, but the property itself and overall any, the building, that will not be touched and will be preserved.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Vanessa.
No problem.
Holly, do you show any more questions in the chat?
There's none in the chat. If someone has something they could, now's a good time.
No, if not, okay. Vanessa and Dan, do you have any closing remark? Anything that you just thought of that you'd like to close with? Make sure that our members are aware of?
Go ahead, Vanessa. You were first.
Thank you. No, I was just going to say, before I go, I'll put the direct links for our website, for our interactive map, in case anyone wants to, quickly hop on. And of course, we may not, we get bombarded with comments and questions, especially after our public meeting. So if you have any comments or questions, please do reach out. It might take us a couple of days, but we really do try our best to reply at least to everybody in some way or form. So thank you.
I guess the one thing I'll say real quick is we noticed this the other day that certain people had reactions to the cross section we were showing. I do want to call out that we are working with Fairfax County very closely to provide trees in these buffers on either side of the roadway. So there will be landscaping out here. It will not be quite as stark as what we're showing here to kind of show you the facilities that we're providing. So there is landscaping that is going to be installed in this along the corridor for the full section at BRT as well as the widening project. I just want to call that out. I want to thank you for having us today. And this is a great resource for us to get out to the community and let everybody know what's happening. So thank you very much.
Well, Dan, Vanessa, AJ, Gary, Alec, we appreciate your being here today very much. Thank you for those presentations. It was certainly a great update and very timely. I wish that there was such a thing as, since we've got the neighborhood charm stations, I wish there was such a thing as having charm noise walls. If there were ever a way to create something that looked nicer than just concrete barrier walls, I think that would be a great thing. Maybe we can work together on something creative. Anyway, that concludes today's program. Thank you all for being here. The August morning briefing will be Fairfax County Public Schools Superintendent Scott Braband, who will talk about the Fairfax County post-COVID school system and projects. We look forward to seeing everybody there. Thank you for your time and attention today. Have a great day, everybody. Bye for now.